Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up. We are back with another episode of the Marketing Millennials podcast. I am here with Marvin Chow of Google. We're excited to chat. I'll let him give a quick intro of how he got into marketing and what he's doing now, and then we'll get into the conversation. Welcome to the podcast, Marvin.
Hey, thanks, Daniel. Excited to be here.
You want to give a little, what are you doing at Google right now? And then we'll start chatting.
Yeah, I've been at Google for, 16 years at this point. I've had a bunch of different jobs, but now I get to work on the most exciting stuff: search, Gemini, and AI. That is my remit on the marketing world. So it's been an exciting 3 or 4 years.
I want to get into the topic. I know you've said recently that the marketing hire of the year is a marketing engineer. Could you just go what is a marketing engineer for people who haven't hired a marketing engineer yet or are thinking of hiring a marketing engineer? What does that role entail?
Marketing, we love labeling things. So it's a little bit of a label for probably a hodgepodge of things, given how early we are and everything. One, I have to give credit to Dylan at Profound, who really came up with the idea of a marketing engineer. I stole from him. I credited him in the post, but we just hired one. His name is John. And, I think at its core, in the future, when you look at what AI is doing, it's collapsing a lot of the executional capabilities, just like all technology, where it's you don't have as many handoffs between, a marketing manager and a research person and a UI person and things like that. It's getting all consolidated. So a marketing engineer is essentially a marketing person who thinks like a systems architect, who doesn't think in just handoffs and briefs, but it thinks in as a system of how does something get outputted into the world. I think that's what it is at its most basic level. I think given where you are, our marketing engineers, they have a handful of tasks. Some of them are really about teaching marketers how to be systems thinkers, how to be using AI beyond chat in different ways. Some of them are actually building systems for us. When you look at the marketing process, what systems do we need to go faster, to go be more efficient, to get more output in what we do? And so it touches on all of those things right now. But I think at its core, it is that marketing person that kind of thinks like a systems architect.
What do you foresee? I know because AI has changed a lot. So what do you foresee in the next 3 years, your org looking like with new hires or new roles or new responsibilities with the speed that AI is developing?
Yeah, I think, no one knows. And if I knew, I would be much richer than I am now. But I think you're probably going to see this barbell effect, right? You're still going to need marketing leaders. You're still going to need creative people. You're still going to need people with taste and judgment and conviction to decide what should we be doing for a brand or for a campaign. And that has always been true for marketing leaders, no matter what the technology. I think on the other side of the barbell, I think you're going to have a set of tools and people that are really going to be focused on creative execution, efficient execution, targeting, insights, and things like that. And those will be using a very high amount of new tools or AI agents or whatever you want to call them in the next 2 or 3 years. And I think that that's going to be a way things are going to be structured. And I think what that risk becomes is middle management. We've all worked at these companies where it's you work for a person who has a boss, who has a boss, who has a boss, who works for a decision maker. And an idea has to kind of travel up that chain and get opinions that middle of opinion will start to collapse dramatically, both because of how fast you're going and how good the tools you're using will get, where eventually, potentially a person with 2 years or 3 years experience working together with a group with a bunch of tools, it'll just go to a director and be yes, we love it. Let's just go. And I think that velocity and that execution is really going to be how we optimize to get the best marketing work out with the AI tools we'll have.
And I know, talking about the execution side of it, I know you've also said that execution has become way cheaper. But what when you say that, what part of execution has got a lot cheaper?
I think there's two ways to think about it. I think one, on time, I think if anything, where if something used to take 4 or 6 weeks and now takes 2 weeks, that's cheaper in one way, where it's like it just takes less people hours, less time to get things done. And I think you've seen this. I've worked in marketing for almost 30 years, where it used to take 9 months to make a spot and traffic it. And then the web came along, and it's like, you have a social video out in a day nowadays. So like that compression of time is one thing. I think, the cost factor of a lot of things, it's tricky, right? Like whether you're paying an agency, you're paying freelancers, you're paying tokens, it may be cheaper, it may not be cheaper. I think it will get cheaper though. But I think at the end of the day, when you think about having an idea in your head to getting a concept to a prototype to an end work product out the door is 1,000 times easier it is today than it was 5 years ago, than it was a year ago at that point. And when we think execution is getting simpler, cheaper for everyone, that's kind of what we mean.
Let's do the other side of the barbell. So if that has got cheaper, what is becoming more expensive?
I think, the word that everyone throws around now is taste. Like I think of it as like judgment. I think of it as conviction. I think of anything is when execution is super easy, when you can just put anything into the world. If you put everything that comes into your mind in the world, everything is kind of crap at some point. And you saw this in the early days of like social, right? Like it's just like I ate a banana and I'm taking a picture of it and I'm posting it online. It's like everything is so easy to share with the world. But then as creators got more sophisticated, they're like understanding, okay, when I post this type of content, it gets this kind of engagement. When I say this, or when I act in this way, or this is how people respond, they're developing a sense of judgment and conviction of like what they think is important for their audience. I think that's still going to be a very high bar. Like if you're a brand, if you're Google, your audience is only going to respond to certain things that they like about you, that they feel are relevant to you. And choosing those things is still going to be someone's job. And then beyond that, the best creative in the world is not something that sails through a committee of 10 people and is built by an AI. It's that idea that a small group of people are like, this is the coolest thing. We have to do this. And they fight for that. And they overcome all the naysayers and all the people that are scared of risk taking, and they put it in the world. And then at the end of the day, people are like, that was amazing. That's still going to be someone's job to fight for what they believe is pushing the boundaries of what's next. And, and that's whether that's a marketing leader, whether that's, like a 27-year-old producer, that amount of judgment and conviction is still going to be really important in any creative field. Like, that's why, like, whether it's social content or movies or marketing creative, great work doesn't just like happenstance. Like people have to believe.
I want to also go into the creativity side of it, because I think there's that creativity of like creating great ideas, but there's also, we're talking a little bit about systems design. And I think that's going to take a lot of creativity to like create good systems that have never been created before, because AI you could do pretty much anything with it. Mm-hmm. So what is like, and I think the best leaders are going to be great, like system managers, but what is a great system design starting to look like? What does like a marketing system look like?
I mean, I think, look, you were the one I think that says something along the lines that great marketing is built on the unsexy work behind the scenes. And I think that is the systems that that we're starting with, because that is the easiest part. So everything from, what does market research look like? What is, personas look like? How do we test work? How do we test prototypes? How do we, even briefing is evolving, where it's like, it's really not the days of just like writing a brief and handing it to an agency and waiting 6 weeks to get back. Everything's becoming more iterative in the system as things collapse. Like, and so a lot of what we're doing is like going through the marketing teams and like, what are the pain points? Like, I'll say one pain point at Google is like approvals. Like just there's so many approvals and like legal and checks, and it's like all done like over like chat or email threads. And it's like, can we just have a very simple system where everyone just approves everything and can see everyone's comments at once? And so I think just reducing the pain points and the friction, because marketing, particularly at a company like Google, where it's like, we're still a young company and, the marketing function's grown up over the last 15 or 20 years. It's a very bespoke function. Like if when I went from Nike to Google, like the marketing works totally differently. And they're two different companies, they're different processes. And because marketing is such a bespoke function, there's a lot of room for lack of a better word, optimization. Like there's a lot of friction that we've introduced because there's a lot of people trying to move something through the system. And I think that's why I think in some ways marketing is ripe to benefit from AI, but also it's going to take a while because we don't have an infrastructure in place at all. A lot of these companies of how things work, like what's your digital asset management tool? What's your briefing mechanism? What's your, how do you work with international markets? So all those things, I think, is a chance to relook at all of that work that happens before the output starts. And how do you make that easier so that people can work on the things they want to work on? There's so many marketing people, they get the job and they're like, they thought I'd be working on this, like making things like social assets or ads or whatever, but they actually work on like a ton of somewhat like busy bureaucratic work. And I think, can we get rid of that?
Especially in like companies like Google, where it's like but it's true. Like 50% of a lot of jobs are, especially when I was in marketing ops, was just making sure like it's ticket management and like making sure like they are prioritized and people agree with the priorities and goes back and forth. And it's just wastes so much time that doesn't need to be. But I think I wouldn't call it really a system, but one of the things that everybody's trying to figure out right now, and this is going to be like, since you're at Google, it's a question that's on everybody's mind, is like how should we rethink all the buzzwords like SEO, AEO, GEO, because that's like on the top of everybody's mind, because that's one of the biggest changes is how you show up in search. So how should marketers start thinking about this new wave of like how people are discovering information?
Yeah. I think for us, I mean, obviously as a search company, we think a lot about this. And one of the things that at least we hope is easier for brands and marketers is everything we do, like with Gemini and like, quote unquote GEO, is rooted in search. Right. So like still the classic work you've been doing with your web pages and indexing that stuff, the products you put into our product graph, like if you're in our shopping area, all those things feed into Gemini. A lot of it, when you search on Gemini, it's grounding in search if you're looking for particular things. So you will benefit from all of your kind of traditional search work as Gemini grows and like uses those products and uses those assets to pull in. And so that is how we approach it, because obviously, we have a long history in search. We've been doing it very well. We understand how indexing in the web works. And so it will continue to evolve, no doubt, but that will be our foundation, because it's also our foundation for credible information. Like, obviously all the LLMs hallucinate to a degree. We feel like in our research that people trust ours better because it is grounded in a certain amount of knowledge and search and credible information in that sense. And so that's an approach that we've taken since the very beginning. And I think it's been paying off recently because both advertisers, content publishers, and credible information benefit.
Talking about the web and product I think that one of the other things that people are talking a lot about is like how it's also indexing a lot of things that are outside of your website. So like Reddit, like getting PR mentions, which like PR is like having a more of like a comeback now because of this AEO. So how much does that matter in this new world of like making sure like you're creating everywhere where your audience is acting versus just before it was just like this, like only think about our web page. And now it like becomes like, I have to create on LinkedIn. I might have to be on Reddit or show up on Reddit, or I might have to show up here. Like how much does that actually matter?
I think those things have always mattered for the brand, maybe not as much for search, but definitely for the brand. I think Reddit, there's been a lot of research, like Reddit is like, I think people, advertisers think it's like 30 or 50% of these things are coming from Reddit. It's actually not. Reddit is no more a source than anything else on the web right now. So Reddit's a good source. I think social is a good source, but a lot of the LLMs actually don't get to scrape closed ecosystems. So like TikTok or, Instagram and things like that. So you may not be benefiting from that as much as you think because they don't have access to those things. They may not have access to LinkedIn content. It depends on the publisher and how they're putting information on the web, because most LLMs are using publicly available content in that sense, or they're buying content from like a company like Reddit. So it will vary across the board. But I think, you have to imagine these AI systems are pretty sophisticated. They're smart enough not to look at like, oh, one person said one thing on a Reddit board, so that's the truth. Like, that's the same way search works. The product's job is to triangulate what the content across these things are to get to the best answer you have. And so, of course, these things help. I still think from a Google standpoint, your own website is still very important. Your own product listing pages are still going to be really important, because that is first party data on your product. Now, when you get to, if you're selling a product, review sites may get important as well, because if the question is about, is this better than this? They're going to look at people's opinions and things like that. So it really depends on what people are looking for, what kind of product you have. But, I think it is still fluid, but I would still say that your product listing sites, your own websites still play a pretty big role, but definitely, doing more on PR, doing more on, content creation. That's been a trend for the last like 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. I've always thought, everything that people are saying in AEO and GEO are like behaviors that marketers just should have been doing 10 years ago, and then they weren't doing, and now they just are realizing they should have been doing it because it's indexing these things more. Not saying Reddit and stuff, but you should have been creating content all over the internet. You should have been distributing. You should have been updating your blogs to be more latest information. You should have added more customer reviews and social proof and all that stuff onto your website. It's just now people are talking about it more.
Yeah. I think it also, look, there was a chapter of brands that kind of came up in the age of social. And that made sense. It's like you could build a brand on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. And that was a very fast content management system to reach to a lot of people. And it's still very effective. But with LLMs, because they look at the web, a lot of those brands had kind of forgotten about the web. They forgot about their own websites. They forgot about their own blog posts. They forgot about publicly available information on the web. And most people equate like, oh, it's on Instagram, it's public, but actually it's not public in the same way, where YouTube is public in a lot of ways, and your YouTube content actually plays a big role in how, search and Gemini look at it. And so I just think it's a little bit of a correction from the days where brands were just 100% all in on social, kind of closed social platforms, now having to reset and look broadly across, okay, well, where does my brand live across the entire digital ecosystem?
I also wanted to ask, in this age of AI, what are skill sets that marketers need to start leveling up on? Does a marketer need to learn how to code? How do they need to get more technical? Or is it that going to be the role of the engineer? Or what are some things that we marketers should start leveling up on right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a couple things, and it depends on where you are in your career. I think one of the macro things that I think is important for many jobs, but including marketing, and I've benefited myself, is this growth mindset. I've had to learn the web, I've had to learn social, I've had to learn AI. And I think being open to somewhat unlearning the way things were done in the past and embracing how things can be done in the future is a very valuable skill set as things shift, because there are a lot of people, and we've worked with people like this, where it's they just don't want to evolve with wherever the technology is going and look at it from a positive point of view. There's definitely going to be risks, but you're opening up a whole new world of opportunity. And I think people that see that are going to be really important. I think on the functional side, I don't think people need to code. I think coding is a great skill, but coding teaches you more than anything else, problem identification, scaled solutions to problems. That's what a lot of engineering coding has to look at when you're building a product. And I think marketing, once again, is a more bespoke function, having that skill set to look across an enterprise and say, here is where these frictional pain points are. Here is where we need to really think about solutions. as a problem solution. That kind of systems thinking, I think, is going to be beneficial for people. It doesn't really, it's rooted from coding, but doesn't have to be from coding necessarily. But I think learning how to use the tools that way is going to be where it is, because it's going to move very fast, or it's already moving fast from kind of like chatbot prompting to like agents and systems and like recurring, kind of agents that'll help you with certain things, and being able to think in that framework, I think is going to be a very valuable skill moving forward.
Yeah. And I've always said that just like in any role, like you should be learning how everything works in marketing. Like you shouldn't, like, even if you are like the best social person, you should know what paid social is doing. You should know what marketing ops doing. If you're the best like paid social, you should know what SEO is doing. You should know what this person's doing, because you just need the whole picture and like now the whole system to understand like, where does my functionality fit in the system? How do I attach to the system? How does it work? And if you're not thinking like that, it's hard to play a bigger role in the system or like be beneficial to like making sure like your role grows in this like ecosystem.
But that's, I think, where I 100% agree, but I think that's also where the challenge for marketing is going to be, because like I said, you've worked at a company. It's like, oh, your job is organic social, and that person's job is paid social, and that person's job is social insights reporting, and it's like, well, the three of you have to get into a room to do something, right? And so, will AI tools solve that, where it's like you can do the boosting and get the insights and get the real-time analytics as one person now, and so like that just means we have to rethink what is the structure of a marketing organization? What is the role of different partners, and what is the role of different tools? Because we have built an industry made up of like hundreds of specialists, basically, and I think that, and it's a little bit, some of them are very necessary. If you go on a shoot, like a producer and a director and a photography, whatever, those are all necessary, but also a YouTube creator can do it with two people, like they'll shoot back rooms with like far less people than they shot Odyssey with, and they're very different. Obviously, I'm not comparing them, but I just think it's like, technology is collapsing these roles and functions. And I think if marketing organizations don't realize that, they're just going to be really left behind, because three people working and handing off on a thing versus one person being able to do it all by themselves with a bunch of tools, you're going to lose to that one person 9 times out of 10, given the speed, the cost, and efficiency that person can have.
Basically, a lot of what we're saying is, and you're saying, every role is just like a set of tasks that you're like doing. Like every marketing role is just like a set of tasks. Like, and some tasks are going to get like some tasks in your role AI can take over, and you got to figure out like what are the new responsibilities of your role to like level you up to make sure that you aren't the one, like your tasks don't get like smushed into that one role. So that's like and is that beneficial? Because if you're the one person who understands those three, and you have, which we talk, judgment, taste, whatever, because judgment, the reason why judgment matters is because you have to know what good looks like.
Exactly.
Like you could smush all these roles together, but if that person doesn't know what a good YouTube clip looks like, or that person doesn't know what good copywriting is, or that person doesn't know what a good system architecture looks like, it doesn't really matter, because you just are stacking bad on bad, which is not ideal in this age. That's like what old systems were like. It was just duct tape on duct tape, and now we're going to be, if you don't do that, it's just going to be more duct tape on more duct tape. So I have a question, like, how would you, if someone said, like, everybody's saying like this taste argument, and everybody needs taste, but how do you actually like teach taste? Like where does taste come from?
It's a great question. Obviously some people innately have it. It's the very few, but a lot of it is, to a degree, it's been trial and error. I think one, there's a good feedback loop. And I go back to like, if you're like a YouTube creator, you'll put a piece of content out, you'll see how people respond. You look at the data, you look at the comments, you'll understand what they liked and what they didn't like about that. And you'll kind of refine your mental model of what good looks like for you as a creator. as a brand, we do the same thing. We put things in the world. We look at data. We look at comments. We look at feedback. We look at sales, whatever. And we understand, okay, well, this was good for maybe sales, but maybe it didn't emotionally resonate. It wasn't inspiring. And so you kind of start to create that rubric. And I think having these open conversations around what's working and what's not working is going to be important. I think AI models are going to help with that. They're going to be able to collate far more data for us and give us at least an initial sense of what's working, what's not working. But I think a lot of it is just like that conviction you're going to have around like what you believe. Most people who have an amazing idea that they can't let go of and that are so passionate about it, there's a reason, there's an insight, there's a reason why they're so passionate about it, because they believe they heard something, somebody said something, they have an insight, they saw something, and that has led to that conviction. It's not just like, I think it's amazing, that's just going to go. And I think that being open to that feedback and that insight and that kind of loop of just like learning and trying and learning and trying is how people are going to develop that essentially.
Yeah, it's that experimentation. I also think like one of the layers that I've always thought about, because like I've got to a point like on social, like on LinkedIn, like I know what like a post is going to hit or not, but that just becomes like deeply knowing like what my audience cares about. And I think that like going back to like the fundamentals of like what does your audience like actually deeply care about? And that is evolving because you're paying attention to AI is helping that, which is amazing, but it's evolving to like, okay, like now we're shifting about like people like hearing more about AI. Like what are the problems that they're hearing about? It's just continuously refining that, where if you get too stuck in AI and systems, you start losing out on like what we're actually building for. And it's like our audience and that end user or that end person. Right. And I think like we still need to be touch grass or be with a human to start understanding like how to do this better. And that's also system architect's going to be a lot of it too, is like understanding how your audience is moving now versus like how they were moving before. I
think there's going to be like a fine line in how you talk about it of like not over optimizing versus kind of bringing, knowing where your audience wants and bringing them where you think they need to go. Because I think once again, even you as a brand, it's like you can over optimize to what your audience wants and it kind of is a diminishing return. But like if you really listen, like to your AI point, it's like, oh, people want to go here. You want to take them somewhere interesting because you're hearing something. And I think that's kind of almost the difference between taste and optimization, like just overly optimizing. And so, because I do think we are in a world with digital and things like that, where we've kind of somewhat over optimized for what's directly in front of us. And like taste almost allows us to, as you say, step back, touch grass and be like, okay, but where do we really want to go as a brand, as a creator and things like that?
And I think that's why talking about like why it's going to be so much harder for like the new marketers coming up, because that like experience layer is a lot of like, is hard. It's like it takes time to teach that experience layer.
But I will say like, we are lucky. We've got an amazing crowd. We call them APMMs. They're kind of usually fresh college graduates. And I think I've been incredibly impressed with the batches, most likely recently, because one, their exposure to marketing from like a creator social point of view is just higher than anyone else ever. So like, cause it is a microcosm of like how all of marketing works. Their adoption of AI tools, their excitement of like the possibility of these tools is far greater than anyone else. And they are the ones that are really driving things forward and doing new things, because they're just learning. Like, it's not like they don't have to unlearn as much. It's like it's their first job at a college and they're just learning how to do it well, basically, which it's very refreshing in that sense, where once again, if you've been in marketing for like 5 or 6 years, you're like, I kind of finally figured out how to do my job and how to post on social, and AI comes along. You kind of have to like unlearn some stuff to kind of think about how to move forward. And I think that's really hard for people, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think like every shift, like millennials had to were the people who came in the workforce and had to be the social people. They had to like push social, and they had to drive social, and then social started growing and growing and growing, and it became something serious that people should pay attention to. It's the same as like people who are sometimes like innocence is the best thing to have in marketing. Like kind of like a little bit of innocence, like a little bit of like not knowing what like everything. Cause sometimes you're right. Like you get, some people just get stuck in like, I know it worked this way, so I'm going to do this again. It worked that way, I'm going to do this again. So that unlearning skill is like one of the hardest, is one of the, that we talked about in the beginning, is like, I think more important than people believe is like having these strong, like loosely held opinions, like, and being able to change your mind is because a lot of people have such strongly convicted ideas that they're not willing to move the needle on. And I'm glad you did say that, because I think I've been talking to a lot of people and they have not been so positive about like the new era of marketers coming up. So I'm glad one person has said that you're seeing a great return on college. So people who are new to marketing, keep just grinding, learning new things, and that's going to be your strength right now. What are some things that I'm interested in, like how you using AI on your day to day? Like what is your, like, how are you optimizing your workflows with AI?
I mean, everything. I mean, I'm AI right now. I'm not even a real person. I'm not kidding. I mean, once again, like I'm experimenting a ton. I am learning a lot from my team. Like every week we do what we call AI Power Hour, where someone comes in, they teach us new skills, people share what they're doing. And like in the beginning, I was the expert. And then now, like I go in and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that's how it worked. And I'm learning things. But I mean, I obviously use research, chatbots. I spar with the AI when I have ideas. We launched Gemini Spark recently. So I've got a bunch of agents that are like combing, and I think it's like the details of what you're asking it for. Like, a lot of people will have like a summary of like what's going on in the industry. But, I subscribe to a lot of newsletters and podcasts, and I have it look at the ones that I subscribe to give me a morning briefing of like what I care about and why it's relevant to me. I'm definitely using it to, do briefings. Like every time it looks at my calendar, and when I have a one-on-one, or if I have a team meeting, it'll look at the notes from the previous meeting or the deck that's attached, and it'll just give me a little bit of like a context framing. Oh, this is the meeting. This is what we talked about last time. These were the things that we have to follow up on. So when I get to the meeting, I'm not starting from scratch in a lot of ways. I'm using it that way, internally, not me 100%, but like a lot of our creative is prototyped with like VO, our video model. So instead of storyboards or whatever, like the team will bake like a prototype of an ad, a real live animation or a real live action kind of spot to get a sense of where we're going. And we can kind of give feedback and comments on that. And so we are really looking at almost like every nook and cranny. Like I recently posted, we had our big IO conference in May, and I posted a blog post of here's all the ways that we used AI to develop the graphics, to develop the films, to develop, the title cards, build some of the pre-show work that we're doing there. So obviously it's our job and our mission to kind of see where can we push the AI in the newest ways, both like internally as we work, but also as the work we do on behalf of Google. And so, it's kind of every which way where I was like, well, how can AI do something for that? So
I have like more of a selfish question, but I'm just interested like how you like, and I've heard a lot of people say they do this, but like I'm interested in how you particularly do this. Like, what does like sparring with AI look like to you? Like, what is like a conversation? Like, you have an idea. What does it look like, the back and forth, and how are you making sure that it's not like biasing your decision versus actually like pushing back on you?
Yeah. No, yeah. And it's interesting, like some of the stuff we talked about, like kind of this like marketing org of the future, like I've been thinking a lot about this. And so like I've got like I don't talk as much with AI just because of the environments I'm in. So I type more, which is a little bit unusual, but I have a long kind of agent discussion thread where I gave it a bunch of, reports, like some McKinsey reports, some canned readout reports of like where AI is going. And I was like, take this, here's my current org structure. Like, what does the org structure of the future look like? And I said, put it in a 7-page slide deck, give me the pros and cons, set it up, and it outputted it. And then I'll just ask questions about it. I'll be like, well, why didn't you think of it like this? Or I'll be like, what about this? How did you not, who would make the decision? And then I was like, can you actually map out what a piece of work in this structure that we're talking about? What would a piece of work look like from start to finish, and who would do what in this structure you propose? And then I'll actually ask it to stress test it. Like, ask, what are 3 questions that I should be thinking about that makes this go the other way? And it will ask me that, or I'll ask, and then I'll ask it back. So asking the AI to stress test things, like if you ask it to do something, you can also ask it to say, do this thing and ask me 3 clarifying questions so that you can do a better job. Because sometimes like we ask it to do something and it's overly simple, but the AI, if you give it more information, if it needs to know 3 more things or 5 more things, it will do a better job. And so stress testing that, and marketing people are great at that, the devil's advocate. Well, what about this? Or did you think about this? Or like, just literally asking that back and seeing how it responds, and then obviously telling it, not just to agree and things like that. It is just this kind of back and forth, like what if, how come kind of conversation that I have on various projects or just like things that are in my mind, so to speak.
Yeah. And I always like to ask like AI, like to just like show me like how you thought you got there, like show me like the thought process. Then you can go back and say, why did you think about it like this? Why did you not think? Because I sometimes it doesn't give you the whole picture of like how it got there, because it gets there so fast. Yeah, it's sometimes good to like go back and say like, okay, I looked at this, and that's why I made the decision. So I like that. I think that's because I think that is a skill set to like learn how to like challenge and challenge ideas and challenge, because a lot of people could take what AI says as like the gold standard, which exactly not always the truth.
Another fun one that we've been playing around, this is like a little bit dated now, I'll say, is like we do the board of directors kind of thing where you'll set up like an agent or like a skill that is like, it could be, you take the top 10 most prolific marketing people, like a David Wyden and an Ogilvy and a whatever, and like, so, or a creator or whoever. And you kind of give it like these 10 or 20 personas, and you ask it a question and you say, take 4 of these people and have their opposing opinions. So you want 2 opposing, 2 for opinions, and you have them, the AI kind of interpret, well, what would David Ogilvy think about this? And what would a counterpoint be? You could take like famous, even like fictional, like PR people. You could take Olivia Pope, you could take Frank Luntz, and you can be like, how would they think about this PR situation? And you have it pick intentionally 2 sides of an argument, taking on the personas of fictional or real experts in an area. And that, once again, it's all about helping you think through a problem. Like, I'm not looking for the answer, but I'm like, oh, well, actually, like the fact that Frank Luntz would have this angle on it, I never would have thought about that. I'm not I'm not researching him, but that's interesting, And so that's another way that we kind of spar to just, once again, like open how you're thinking about a problem into a new way.
Yeah, I love that. I do that with like copywriting a lot. I'll take like the top copywriters and I'll be like, how would like Ogilvy versus Sugarman debate this like headline, and like to see what they say. I don't take their headlines as like gold standard. I just want to see like if Ogilvy's formula is this and Sugarman's
exactly, yeah.
Like which one works? Like maybe I'm not thinking about a word differently, or maybe I'm thinking of it like how the setup differently. And it's just interesting to see how other people think, which you couldn't do before. You would have to go either read Ogilvy,
all of this stuff, or ask an expert, or
yeah, exactly. You would have to go ask that, which now it pulls whatever's on the internet.
Yeah. And it's this starting point of like, if you just assume it has like kind of all the world's knowledge, like what would you like? It just like what would you ask it? Like, and I think in some ways we're almost being so disrespectful of like it's an oracle. It has all the world's knowledge, and we ask it like the most basic formulated question, and it's like, but you could ask it a lot of more interesting ways. Once again, not for the answer, but just to get to a point of view, and so.
Yeah, like you would. in a work org, you would probably like, if you had a problem and you didn't understand thing, you probably would have like tapped like on like this person to come give their opinion and tapped on this person to get in this, or like read a book or found a blog or found something. Now you just get find that in a second. They're just like asking a question. I ask everybody this on my podcast, but what is a marketing hill you would die on?
I don't know if I have a marketing hill I would die on. Yeah, I wish I had prepared better. I don't know what I would be. I mean,
whatever. What like a strongly held opinion right now that's like not like strongly held, but like could be changed tomorrow.
I mean, my biggest opinion is that like it's guaranteed that everything's going to change, but that's not like controversial in any way. You know, I mean, obviously, like my optimism towards AI is a hill that I'm going to die on now.
People have said so many different things to me. Yeah, like a lot of people, people like die on the hill, like someone would say like brand is performance marketing. Like they die on the hill. Like that's like it is performance.
Definitely
marketing.
Not die on that hill. I think brand, I would die on the hill that like brand will forever be important. I think like the power of a brand will forever be important, no matter how the technology changes, no matter what comes, like brands will be important. Great brands will still last. I mean, that is a hill I will definitely die on. I don't know if it's controversial, but
I think some people, I mean, it's funny because it's probably not controversial in the sense, but I don't think people build that way internally a lot. Like they like build to optimize like for like the result that's like a month ahead or like a week ahead, and not the result. Like a lot of people think about like, if my brand was going to last 10 years from now, what are the actions I need to do today to make sure that is the case? They think about like, how could I hit my revenue goal this quarter? Like a lot of people, or they're thinking about a year, but some of the best, like a founder is always like thinking like, how am I going to make this like this company last 5, 10, or a CEO, like, how I'm going to make sure this company lasts 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years. Like if you think about that in a marketing sense, like some of your actions today will probably be a little different than you would do in that moment. So
we talk about it a lot in the sense of like, and I'm sure this is common in areas like the brand bank. Like you can take out of the brand bank to get to a revenue target or to sell a product or introduce a new product. But if you're not putting back into the brand bank, if you're not doing those things that kind of just like reinforce who you are as a brand, why people love you, like at some point the brand bank is empty. And we've all seen those brands where they've just kind of depleted, they've just sucked the brand dry, where it kind of doesn't mean anything anymore. And I think you just have to continually reinvest in that bank, you know, with different things that you're going to do.
No, I like that. I like that saying, because I think it doesn't. I'm not against people pulling out to do actions to like, hit their goal. Like I'm not against that, but it is like that jab, right hook thing. It's like you can't right hook, and then because that right hook is just basically like withdraw.
Exactly. Yeah.
Instead of like investing, it's like putting like debt on your credit card without paying it back. It literally, then you're just like compiling debt, and then you're at some point the debt gets too high and you can't pay it back. So
and you're broke.
Yep, exactly. Lastly, where can people find what you're doing, follow your journey, follow your opinions, follow your like thought leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the real Marvin on everything, but like LinkedIn is probably where I'm kind of sharing the most thought leadership right now around marketing and AI. So I would go there.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks. Enjoy the conversation. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.